So I've been doing some research. It's time to replace our old gas absorption Norcold RV refrigerator with a residential fridge. And my research has come to this model here. And first of all, let me go to the RV and show you the old one and why I chose this particular model. Okay, here's our old Norcold. And it's served us pretty well for 18 years. Done pretty good. But it does struggle when you got going out west and it's really hot weather. It has a hard time. You're hard pressed, getting ice cold ice cream will be kind of soft on you. So this is what I'm going to be replacing it with. I know a lot of people have the 1200 series, and that's actually kind of what got me on this journey. A friend of ours in the campground, his RV nearly burnt down because his 1200 series, which I think was a 2013 model. I made a video on it just a couple videos back, and pretty scary how that thing had all the updates on it, yet it still caught fire. And I thought it was just maybe it's just a 1200 series only, but I've talked to a friend of mine who owns a an RV repair place, and he says that it's not just the 1200s. He sees fires even from these smaller ones. It's not as common, but it still happens. So I figured, well, this thing's 18 years old, and now that we've all got solar and I got 300 amp hours of batteries on board, I think it's time for me to make the switch, and I can sleep a little bit better. In fact, if anybody has a 1200 series Norcold, I would watch some videos and do some research and try to come to your own conclusion. Because honestly, I wouldn't sleep very well knowing if I had a 1200 series Norcold running in my RV. So anyway, this is what we're about to replace. Let me go back to in the house and show you a test on what I'm about to run. Okay, back in the house. I'll show you some specs on this. The original Norcold, the original Norcold was only 7.5 cubic feet. Is what we got now, and for 10 years that's fine for us. I know a lot of people have the 1200 series Norcolds. I'm assuming they're close to 12 cubic feet, but for 10 years, the 7.5 cubic feet has worked fine for us. Sometimes the freezer would get pretty full, but we was able to deal with it. Now with this model here, it's actually 9.8 cubic feet. So we're going to have a larger space, and we're going to have ice cold ice cream, so that's going to be nice. The price wise, we paid $449 for it. I just checked and went online. It actually dropped down price down to $379 at Lowe's. So there's the model number. If you're interested in getting one, you can get them in black or white. So that's a couple of things. Also, it's going to be lighter. I looked at the specs on this one. I think, yeah, this one is 112 pounds, where the Norcold, I believe, comes in about 142 pounds. Of course, it's going to be frost free. Want to fool with that no more. That'll be a nice setup. Something else to consider is, like, if you happen to have a 1200 series Norcold. I know some people that they've had the refrigerators fail. They actually have to take a window out in order to get the old 1200 out and the new one replaced. And the nice thing about this refrigerator is it's fit right in there. And in fact, I've measured it. It should fit exactly in our cabinet without any modifications whatsoever. But and so if you did have I'm trying to think, if I had a 1200 series, would I downsize? I think I would, and maybe gain some cabinet space, because this should, that's quite a bit of space. I know those 1200 series are popular, but if you could sacrifice a little bit of space, 2 cubic feet, but save a lot of money and sleep better at night, not have to worry about any kind of fires. And with its size, hopefully you wouldn't have to make any modifications to your cabinet, and you'd gain a lot of space. Maybe you put in some extra shelves to the left or to the right for more storage. Oh, and there's another nice thing about this refrigerator and its design. It has no exposed coils, not on the back, not on the bottom, nothing that has to be cleaned. The coils themselves are actually built into the side, and the heat comes off the sheet metal. That's how it gets rid of the heat out of the refrigerator. So keep that in mind. You got to keep your spacing on here when you get it installed in your cabinet. You need 1 inch on both sides, 2 inches, and 1 inch on the top, 2 inches on the back. That's what the specs call for. All right, so let's run a 24-hour test on this thing and measure how many amps and watts it's going to be pulling, and see how hard it's going to be on my battery bank. Well, it's time for some testing. I mentioned in an earlier video I'm thinking about getting rid of my old Norcold refrigerator and put in a residential, because I've upgraded a year or so ago. I've got 300 amp hours on board by using 3 Battleborn batteries, and they're working really well for me, and I think this would be a good test. But before I go to the trouble of installing it, I really want to know for sure how much is it going to pull my batteries down. Say worst case scenario, you know, we're boondocking and there's no sun, it's raining for a day or two, and I just want to see what kind of strain it's going to put on the battery. So here's my test. So you can see I've got my batteries fully charged, 100%. What we got? Get all the way around here. 14. Here we go. 14.4 volts. So now, because I'm in the building, I don't have any sun or anything. But first step I'm going to do is turn off the solar panels. So that's nothing can go in there. I've already unplugged. You can see those cords there. Those two red cords feed two individual breakers at the breaker box, which feeds most of the circuits I need powered by the inverter. So I've unplugged those and then plugged in instead this yellow cord, which actually runs into the house where the new refrigerator is sitting. So that's step one. What else I got to do? We got to go down here. We got to unplug the shore power. So let's get that done. Let's test something first. All right, just to show you. Okay, shore power, we're looking at 124 volts on one leg, 123 on the other. So now let's kill that. Okay, get down here. All right, that's unplugged. Now let's go back in. Make sure we've lost power to the RV. Okay, yep, all zero now. So now the next step is, because we're still pulling amperage, get up here camera. So I'm pulling 5 amps. So let's put it in storage mode. Auxiliary battery. All right, so that's killed all the 12 volt. Okay, it's dropping down at 2 amps, 1 amp draw. Okay, I think that's all I need to do. So you can see my inverter in there. It's pulling 0 amps, 0 volts, and it's detecting 14.4 volts in the battery bank. So now I can go into the house, turn on the refrigerator from a totally warm start, and we can calculate how much is going to pull these batteries down, maybe 12 or 24 hours. If we start out with 100%. There we go. Now I'm just kind of curious. So let's head to the house. Yeah, you see my cord going up through the window? Yeah, I got a very loving wife that lets me do this crazy stuff. Make a mess of her house, you'll see. And you see what I've done to her house. Got a refrigerator sitting in the middle of the den. Been sitting here for about 3 weeks now. But she's getting tired of it, so hopefully I'll get this test done and we'll get to installing it in the RV. Okay, so now you can see there's my yellow cord. It's coming from the RV. We're sitting at 122 volts. The fridge is completely warm. It's over 70 degrees there. Yep, 70 degrees on that one. And I got my little digital readout here so I can monitor the temperature without opening the doors with my little cool little box right here. So let's close up the doors. Well, I got it turned on first. Let's see what. I'll put it on 4. All right, compressor kicked on. There we go. Closed up. Okay, voltage dropped to 117 even with a 100-foot cord. That's pretty good. Let's see what our amp draw is. Okay. .75. Let's order wattage. There's watts out. There it is. Yep, 0.75 watts. So it's like a light bulb. Pretty amazing. Of course, this is worst case scenario because we're starting with a completely warm fridge. Normally, you know, our refrigerator would already be cooled down and the compressor would be cycling on and off. Okay, let's go out to the RV and let's see what kind of pull we're seeing out there. All right, you see our battery's still 100% full and we are pulling 7.4 amps is what we're drawing with the compressor on. All right, let's go back inside. Okay, it's only been a few minutes. You can see the freezer's already dropping a little bit, down to 68 degrees. And I'm gonna make me, this is 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 a.m. So I'll come back and check this in about 12 hours, and we'll see what our numbers are then, and measure how much it's pulled the batteries down, and how many amps we've drawn at that time. Should be an interesting experiment. And then I might do another one once the refrigerator has met its temperature, and just to maintain, I'll do another test on that to see what the difference is versus taking a warm refrigerator. Of course, if you had a bunch of food in there, it may take even more time initially. So stay tuned until tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day. You can see the refrigerator's been running for 14.22 hours. Now let's go down and see how much battery loss we've had in the RV. Okay, so we pulled the batteries down to 86% after running that refrigerator for a solid 14 hours. So that's not bad at all. I like that pretty good. So now I'm going to do another test, because remember on this first test we had a warm refrigerator, and the reason I got the refrigerator sitting in the house is I want a stable temperature. Right now we still have cool nights and warm days, so I didn't want the temperature fluctuation to affect the refrigerator. So let's go back inside. Okay, back inside, I was going to point out to you, here's our temperature. We're 4.6 degrees in the freezer, 39 degrees in the fridge. I'll tweak that a little bit more, get it down to 0 where I like it. I was also wanting to point out on this refrigerator, there's this name, I don't know how you pronounce that thing. There's a model number. Actually, out there's the model number we got. So it's got a lot of great reviews for RV use. So that's what we're going to do. But I also want to point out this saran wrap stuff that's wrapped all the way around the refrigerator. You want to be sure to take that off, like this here, because that would help hold in the heat. And you got to remember, on this refrigerator, it's kind of like those little small deep freezers you buy. You notice there's no condenser fins anywhere. They're not on the bottom, they're not on the back. I got to researching it. The condenser fins are actually molded inside the insulation up against the sheet metal. So you'll notice the sheet metal gets warm on both sides. So that's how it gets rid of its heat, is through the sheet metal. And so you need at least 1 inch gap, it says in the manual, on both sides and the top. You want a 1 inch spacing, and you want at least a 2 inch gap on the rear. So keep that in mind. If you happen to be putting this in an RV, you need some spacing. You don't want to have it tied up against the wall, no insulation up against it or anything like that. It needs to, that heat that's being removed from the refrigerator is going to transfer from the sheet metal. You got to have some air movement around there. And I think when I do mine, I'm going to have to leave my cooling fans up in there so I could draw some air up through and keep the heat out. So let's see, let's do another test. I'm going to tweak the temperature a little bit, get it down to more 0 degrees, and just do a running test without firing up the compressor. Now, another thing was interesting. I noticed within 2 hours the compressor shut itself off. So I noticed that by 5 o'clock in the morning it had already cooled down and cycled off. So it didn't take long to cool down, just 2 hours. So that's good to know. And I can't verify it didn't show this or not. Kilowatt hours used was 0.40 after 14 hours. There's our watts. We're pulling 76 watts right now. All right, I guess that'll conclude test 1. Let's do a test 2. All right, getting ready for test number 2. You can see I got the shore power plugged back up in the RV, and at the moment we're at 86%. So I'm going to come down here, force it into boost mode. There we go. Now we're in boost, and quickly take us back up to 100%, and then we'll do a test number 2. Okay, so we'll let this be our final test. So this time I think I'll run it for 24 hours now that it's actually cooled down and maintaining temperature. You can see the freezer's at 0 degrees, 34 in the fridge. And I've watched it kind of fluctuates. It'll cycle down to 34, 35, go up to 41, cycle back and forth as the compressor comes on and off. And I think in the freezer, the highest I've seen the freezer get up to is maybe 10 degrees during the cycle of the compressor. And up here to my kilowatt meter, I've unplugged it, plugged it back in. So I've got everything all reset. You can see our wattage, we're pulling 74 watts. And let me see all kilowatts here. So that's all been reset. So it's only been running a minute. So this should make a good test for us after 24 hours. We'll see exactly. And then, of course, down at the RV, I've charged the batteries back up to 100% and then unplugged everything. So we'll see how much it pulls my battery bank down in a 24-hour period. Okay, I thought this would be useful. Of course, the refrigerator is plugged in. At the moment, the compressor is not on. You see we're still at 100% fully charged, and we're only drawing, looks like, half an amp. So I'm gonna wait for the compressor to kick on, and I'll see what it jumps up to. Okay, latest update, we're at the 18-hour mark, and you can see we're pulling 7 amps, 6.9, bouncing back and forth. Let's see how much we've pulled out of the battery bank. So we're down to 86% at 18 hours. That's the engine starting battery. There's the house batteries. We're pulling 6 to 7 amps. All right, so I'll come back again here probably at the 24-hour mark, and we'll get our totals. Well, as you can see, we're at the 24-hour mark, and let's see what we've done here. So we've drawn a total of 0.60 kilowatt hours over a 24-hour period. Because you can see right now there's no wattage being used, no amps being drawn because the compressor's off. Currently the temperature in the freezer is 4 degrees, the refrigerator is 39, and I've watched this. It'll go down like -2. It'll warm up to maybe 9 degrees, then the compressor will kick on, pull it back down to -2 again. That's kind of its cycle. So let's go out to the RV and see how much we've pulled out of the battery bank. Okay, here we are back in the RV. You can see I finally, after a 24-hour period, no solar, no shore power, no power at all coming into the RV, it's pulled it down to 79%. So I don't think that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So let's go get some pen and paper and do some calculating. Well, you can see my numbers here. I really like this. I think this is going to work great for us. When the compressor's on, we're pulling about 75 watts. On my 24-hour test, we consumed a total of 63 amp hours out of potential 300 amps that we have in the battery bank. Of course, that's in a situation where we had absolutely no sunlight at all, which wouldn't be normal when you're out camping. During this daytime, you're going to have some sort of sunlight. So, it's a low amp draw, and that shouldn't give me any trouble at all on my battery bank running this and running computers and TVs and everything else that I do. So anyway, do some research. I think this may work well for you if you got some batteries. Even if you're just thinking about going over to solar and you want to do it slowly, just start out with batteries. Don't even worry about solar panels at first. Get your batteries. If you get 300 amp hours of batteries, you can always fire up your generator, because remember those, of course, like with our batteries that we use, the Battleborns, they're like sponges. They just suck the current right up. So it's not like the old lead acid. It takes forever to get them to charge up. So you could do your RV in stages like that. Start out with batteries and solar panels and step up if you only need to do boondocking for a couple days at a time. So stay tuned. Here in a few weeks, hopefully I'll get around to actually installing this thing and see how it turns out.